All right. Welcome back into another episode of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and I am super excited for this edition of the show. Today, we got part 2 of our coaches series. I am joined by Coach Arce. Coach Arce is that guy when I'm telling you about it. I mean, I'm so excited for this episode. Like, I was making my list of people I was going to ask to do the coaches series, and I was like, Coach Arce has got to be on this list. He was one of my favorite coaches I've ever had. Moving into the cross country field, he's the head coach at Shrine, my alma mater for cross country, and super excited to have you, Coach.
Oh, Jake, I'm telling you, when I got the call and the text, I just super appreciate you thinking of me in that manner, and you know that the coaching team at cross country. At Shrine Cross Country also includes Coach Luddy. Like, together, we're a pretty great team. And, you know, when we talk about what's going on at Shrine Cross Country, it's like, you know, Coach Luddy has her deep passion about how she feels about the athletes in the program, and so do I. And it's a little different, so that's why we're a really good mix.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. I mean, to be honest with you, like when I was in high school and was looking at running cross country, I was just like, and every inch of my body was like, I do not want to do this. I do not want to do this. And you know, I kept looking at your program. I'm like, okay, this is run really well. You know, everything's good, and I'm starting to like running. You know, I was getting into it for shape for basketball. And then my friend Claire Plasky was like, Jake, you got to do this. You got to do this.
Man,
and then Jonah Cerrone went after me.
Claire,
Jonah Cerrone went after me harder. Like all in. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I mean, like, I'm so happy I did it. You know, it's one of my favorite years ever. It was so cool.
Because you just did it one year. And I had heard for like your sophomore year and your junior year that you were close, and it got more and more vocal, like, hey, Jake's thinking about running, and then you wouldn't. Jake's thinking about running, and then you didn't. And I was like, oh, man, I guess we're just not going to get this kid. Honestly, I had heard that you were out running the streets. And people were like, how come that Jake's not on your team? I'm like, I don't know. Apparently, I needed to get to Jonah earlier.
Yeah, I know. Jonah was all over me about it, and I finally decided to do it, and it was one of the best decisions of my life because, like, just the team and the program is just something I respect so much, and I feel like you've built such a great program. So I'm really excited to share some thoughts and talk about it a little bit.
That's good to hear, and you were a welcome addition to the team for sure, and a very unique running style and manner, but mainly a great leader. Absolutely. People listen to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, I try. I try with that aspect.
It was fun. Absolutely.
It was a fun year for sure. All right, so let's get into some of the questions here. So, you know, you were an elite cross-country runner, So I want to talk about you for a second. What got you into cross-country, and what made it call to you?
Well, ironically, your grandpa had something to do with it.
Okay.
Because when I was in grade school, I had him. You know, John Wangler was the idol of all football players. The young players were looking at John Wangler, right?
Okay.
This is in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
And I was playing football for your grandpa, and really, what put me into cross country, 7th grade, I broke my leg on a Shrine upper field.
Oh man.
Your grandpa picked me up, put me in the back of his station wagon, and drove me over to Beaumont with a broken leg. Okay, so football done for the season.
Yeah.
Next year, on my way to football, as an 8th grader, thinking, okay, this is going to be my shot to be a quarterback like J-Dub, John Wangler. And on my way, I wiped out on my bike and bruised my kidney, liver, and spleen.
Jeez.
And literally, I was in the hospital for 8 days.
Oh, my goodness.
Football, they're like, we're not going to take your spleen out, but no more football.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So football was out. And at the same time, Lou Miramani was like, so what I was doing, I was running track.
Yeah.
I was playing football and running track. Well, I was running track because I got cut from baseball. So I was like, so I had a pretty decent young track career, and Lou Miramani was like, look, it's obvious football is not your sport.
Yeah.
Why don't you run cross country? So I would have been the first Arce kid to run, not play football, and I was like, let's do it. So let Miramani got his hooks into me, 8th grade year into freshman year, and I loved running and had some early success. So when you're having fun and winning stuff, you're not switching.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and you were having fun and doing it at a huge high level. I mean, you're all over the Shrine board at in that field house over there in the gym, and you're in the Shrine Hall of Fame. Yeah. So one thing I really like focusing on when I'm talking to other runners is their motivation for running. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have something that makes them tick, and for me, that motivation was my asthma. Okay. Right? I wanted to make sure that I would be good enough to play in basketball. So there were times that I'd struggle to run up and down the court. So I was like, okay, we're going to run around the block 5 times. That's it. Or once, just get there to try to be able to sustain a basketball game for more than 2 minutes. So then I don't have to sit. Right. Yeah. And that was the main goal to start. And then it was like, whoa, I'm starting to get better at this. Then it turned into miles. Then it turned into more miles, you know, stuff like that. So talk to me.
And then better performance on the basketball court.
Exactly. Better performance on the basketball court. So talk to me about your motivation and why you decided to start running.
So with my football career behind me, and I always joked at the time that I was the best Shrine quarterback never to take a snap because I never took a snap.
Yeah.
But in high school, when I started having that, really success fueled me.
Okay.
And, here I am, this freshman, and beating, older kids was always like, I have 6 older brothers, or 5 older brothers, 6 boys, 1 girl. So anytime that I could beat their friends, my older brother's friends in the sport, I was like, okay, that fueled me. So that early success fueled me. And then, you could kind of, and you probably experienced this with your own miles, you kind of get lost in the miles.
Yeah.
And then you're running them harder, you're running them faster, and then that's translating to, record. We didn't have the record board at the time, but it's translating to, great times and Catholic League honors and regional and all state stuff.
Yeah.
And then we had such a good team that, one time my sophomore year, Miramani came into we have a pre-practice meeting. Miramani says, "Hey, I have some good news and I have some bad news." And the good news is we're ranked in the top 3 in the state in our division. We were Class B at the time. And we're like, "Oh wow, that's the bad news, or that's the good news." Or the top 3. And he says, "Yeah, the bad news is we're ranked number 1."
Oh.
And once we kind of heard that, Tim Duffy, Tim Damon, Steve Kimmel, God rest his soul, Dave Watson, these guys are our team. Like we got that, and we just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And so that meant miles in the summer, and that was the motivation was, team success and personal achievement early on.
I love that. I love that. I mean, that's the cool part about cross country that a lot of people they just don't understand. I walked into it having no idea any of the rules of the sport, but it's such a team game, having to focus on you can't be the only one. You got to have 2 or 3 more that can get those right times and stuff.
100%.
So talk to me about kind of walking into that team level. And I mean, the names that you mentioned were all great runners. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Pre-show we were talking about our current team, and we just, I get this from Miramani, and in cross country, the current number 1 guy is Abe Cerrone, right?
Yeah.
Ebenezer Cerrone. He's running phenomenal. He's going to rewrite the record board you just mentioned. It's all going to be different in this year and next year, and when he's done, it's going to be different. And but Abe, if the number 1 guy or girl on our Shrine girls team is awesome too, but if the number 1 runner has a bad day, they go from placing 1st to 3rd or 5th. It doesn't hurt the math of the team much.
Yeah.
The most important thing is that 5th runner.
Yeah.
So that 5th runner is going to be 30th or 42nd.
Yep.
And if they have a bad day, they could be 100th.
Yeah.
So number 1 has a bad day, few point swing.
Yep.
Number 5 runner has a bad day, 40, 50, 60 point swing.
Yeah.
And so we really talk to our captains and our leaders on the team about full team motivation.
Yeah.
You gotta have 7 runners running as one, because that 5th one is way more important team wise than the number 1.
Yeah.
And so Coach Luddy and I just really focus on 4, 5, and 6. We want the internal competition of that team to be 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And for when I was running, that was Tim Damon, Steve Kimmel, and Dave Smith. And Dave Smith. Those guys were like brothers, and they would be at each other's throats like brothers, like, and who was the 5th guy and who had a bad day. But we have 5 guys under 17. So when that 5th guy had a bad day, Smitty would come in and replace him. If Smitty was having a bad day, Tim Damon would come in. And so we had 4, 5, and 6 really tuned in. And that's why we won a lot of meets, and that's why we were ranked in the top 3. And now how we finished might be another podcast, but it's a team sport.
Exactly.
And you have individual accolades and individual success when they go on to college, but it's a team thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you talking about the team really makes me realize just how important some of your coaching traits are, and what you talk about in your coaching. And it kind of leads into this question, what made you decide to get into coaching? Was it your knowledge of the game, or was it really just trying to give back to the community?
Yeah, it's well, there's not a lot of knowledge. I mean, there is knowledge in training, but knowledge in the sport, we joke around. This is our coaching. This is our pre-meet coaching talk. Start fast, finish faster.
Yeah.
Go. So, there's not a lot of huge halftime speeches.
Exactly.
And Lou had none.
Yeah.
Lou was a pretty quiet dude. So really honestly, what got me back into coaching, because I coached at Coach Luddy, and I also coached at the grade school track level for 10 years. We coached that for 10 years. We loved it.
Yeah.
And that was more, okay, our kids are doing this. They're going to be at this track anyway. We might as well coach it.
Might as well coach it. Got you.
And then as my son Matt moved on to high school cross country, my desire to coach was always because I don't have one bad memory from any of my sports, grade school or high school. And that is your grandpa again. My dad also coached basketball. Your grandpa coached basketball and football. And then Miramani. Those are my only 3 coaches in my whole life.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I never had a bad experience. Yeah, I was in trouble sometimes, but I always had a great experience from those coaches. Yeah. And so why not? I can do the same thing. I feel like I'm connected in a, none of those coaches were screamers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The old coach, the old style football coach that we hear screaming, when we're doing our laps.
Yep.
And so that was the first thing. I knew that I had great experiences with my personal coaches from back in the day. But then, man, when I got back into coaching, I was working so hard with my business that if I didn't find some outlet, it just goes bad if you're too heavy in one thing, especially with work. All work and no play is not good. So in talking to Mary, I was like, hey, I feel like for a few months of the year, I gotta have an outlet. Yeah. And otherwise this work is gonna, drive me crazy. So it was great experiences with my past coaches, and then just an outlet. Yeah, for sure. Not working so much.
And that's a great thing about coaching too, especially at the high school level. It can be that source of outlet. Mm-hmm. A lot of my past podcasts talks have been about coaching at the college level. That's full-time coaching, that's full-time gig, you're always in it, you're always in the grind. Right. This is nice because you have your full-time job, but then you also have these 4 months of the year where it's okay, this is an outlet. I can completely focus on this and focus on the development of my program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it's not 4 months; it's 3.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I mean? Because
there you go.
it's like,
yeah.
By the time state meet comes around, which is in, the first Saturday of November, it's like, okay, man, I'm ready to get back into making sure my business is solid, and and it's good. Not that I take 3 months off. Like, I'm still working, but man, it's just a good. Thankfully, I have the kind of career where I could designate that amount of time to coach and develop Shrine Cross Country, because I've just always wanted to give back to that team.
Yeah. No, for sure. Moving into the teams, like talking about that, like you clearly talked about the importance of like the fifth runner and the team building and kind of talking about as a player. So talk to me about how you've managed to like incorporate that with the boys and the girls now. So you're talking about 2 teams that have became very successful, and you've had multiple state qualifying teams that have gone long distances. So talk to me about like your organization within the program, how you kind of set up your runners to peak when they need to peak.
Yeah, that's still a mystery. Like it's a work in progress. I know we're getting better. Coach Luddy and I, we start meeting in April and May.
Yeah.
Just the 2 of us start saying, okay, how's this going to go? Who do we have? The open house is in November. Who do we have? Who's coming in?
Yeah.
Who's leaving? We start looking at that team dynamic around that time in the spring. And then we started doing this with Coach Wilson, but we really wanted to drive a summer running program.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was before I'll say 2009, and Coach Wilson was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I spent a lot of time with him. I spent 5 years with Coach Wilson as an assistant.
Okay.
When my son started running, and that was really like 2009 to 2013.
Okay.
And I spent a couple more years with him, and it was different back then. There wasn't really, for whatever reason, I never researched why or whatever, but there was never really a mandatory running program in the summer.
Okay.
And that's the whole season.
Yeah.
That's the whole season. I mean, Coach Luddy and I harp on, you got to run. You got to run some miles. We cannot, your first miles for cross country cannot be at camp.
Yeah.
And we have some jokers that try to do that, and it's funny and it's whatever, but they generally get hurt pretty quick.
Yep.
And so I'll say that was one of the biggest things that Coach Luddy and I are dialed in on, is making sure all our athletes run summer miles.
Okay.
And Coach Luddy's favorite saying is, summer miles bring November smiles. And
I love that.
And that is so true.
That's so
and that's
true.
nothing we created. This is like set cross-country training.
Yeah.
This is from every team, every state, everything.
Yeah.
And so if you want a program that's not faking or pretending into a championship season, then they have to have summer miles.
Yep.
And I think you were around when we created Rocktober.
Yep.
So Rocktober for us is like, this is when these miles start paying off.
Mm-hmm.
Championship season. We got regional, got Catholic League, we got the third jamboree, which is like the deciding jamboree on who's the division champion. So it's Rocktober is all about championships.
Yep.
And
that's
then
true.
with regional championship, that of course gives you birth to the state meet.
Yep.
And like you said, we've had some success with bringing both teams to the state meet. And Lou gives us these statistics that we are only out of all cross country teams on all divisions in the entire state of Michigan, we're like the top 10 in bringing both teams.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, and I messed that quote up, or those stats up, but there is not a lot of teams that bring both boys and girls teams year after year to state meet.
Well, that's the great part
too
about you and Coach Luddy and how you guys coach together, because and that's something like I wanted to ask about. Like, how is it with? I mean, you guys pretty much treat yourselves as like co-head coaches. It seems like,
that's the way it is.
And like that's the really really cool part about it. So talk to me about
100%.
like how that relationship started and how you were able to create like such a coexistence of like how it worked?
Well, I think what's important is remember, if I'm basing my coaching experience from Lou Marimani and, and those coaches of great from back that era is Bob Stark from Brother Rice, Tony Magny, who has, I think, 10 state championships with Catholic Central.
Yeah.
Those coaches are in the building every day.
Okay.
As and teachers.
Yeah.
So they get to connect with those student athletes all day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
And the only guy that hasn't done that has gotten great success is Mark Soma. I mean, that guy is a stud.
Yes,
right?
very
State
much
championships,
so. Very much
new
so.
high school, Michigan High School Coaches Hall of Fame, and he's not a teacher.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? But he has just really good connection. So if you can do that, great. It's rare.
Yeah.
So Coach Luddy's component is she's in the building every day.
Yeah.
And she gets to see these kids in the morning.
Yeah.
She gets to help them throughout the day. She's in their ear. And she's like a little Pied Piper, man. She helps recruit.
Yeah.
She can see, if
She's very good in that aspect.
She's
Trust me.
great in that aspect. And if somebody's not playing a sport in the fall, hey, come on out.
Yep.
And so I love that about that dynamic because I feel like that's a very key piece to success.
Yeah.
Is being with the kids every day.
Yep.
And so and I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she's like our tandem of coaching. She's awesome in that she's really informed on the competition.
Yeah.
She knows those other schools. She knows those other athletes. She sees them in track. And so I appreciate the counterbalance and dynamic. I think I'm a guy that knows and shares with Coach Luddy on what we have to do in the summer, what we have to do week by week, and we have our program by calendar week on what we're going to do all season long to get these kids going from base summer miles to a little more up-tempo stuff to speed work, to kind of resting, and then Rocktober.
For sure.
And we've got a good mix on that. And I, she'll say, and probably evidenced here, is like I'm a rah-rah guy too.
Uh-huh.
Like I can, we'll talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, we each have our really good strengths and weaknesses, and my weaknesses are her strengths, and my strengths are her, counterbalances.
Yeah. No,
really
I love
well.
it. I love it. I mean, you're getting me hyped up. Like I want to go run
You
for
want
you
to go for
again.
a little run after
I mean, I would absolutely love it. All right. Well, we're actually going to take a little break, and then we're going to get back to more questions.
Welcome, everybody, to the JOMO Show, your home for Oakland sports and beyond from WXOU. My name is Giovanni Mosheri, and I am the host of the one and only show that covers the Oakland University Golden Grizzlies each and every week. Subscribe to the JOMO Show for weekly interviews with athletes and coaches, for a recap of the week's action at OU, and whatever else is going on in the sports world. You can tune in on 88.3 FM, WXOU, or wherever you get your podcasts each week. Go Golden Grizzlies on the JOMO Show.
Are you seeking connection, harmony, or a deeper sense of purpose? We believe spirituality is a universal language. Whether you find purpose in prayer, meditation, or simply connecting with nature, Merkaba is here to embrace your unique path. Merkaba, elevating consciousness through fashion. Visit Merkaba.shop or follow us on Instagram at Merkaba to explore our unique world of fashion. And our all-new fragrance line, handmade in Detroit, Michigan. Use code JAKESTAKES123 for 10% off any order. This exclusive offer only lasts for a limited time.
All right, welcome back into the show, and we are going to switch over now. I wanted to talk a little bit about your organization. We touched about it on it a little bit, like talking about specifics of like Rocktober, talking about some speed training, and I know we started out with long runs to start. So talk to me about how like that organization system happens. You talked about calendars with Coach Luddy and stuff like that. Talk to me about the planning process and the execution.
Yeah.
there.
So, we're not as, our planning and our organization is old school style.
Yeah.
We pull out the paper calendar and we go week by week, month by month, and it's literally pencil and paper.
Okay.
Which, athletic.net has this really super cool thing. And we've grown into athletic.net a little bit where we can have all our workouts by day, by week in there.
Uh-huh.
But that's just the mechanical way of keeping track of who's doing what.
Yeah.
And, Coach Luddy and I always want to coach to the varsity team. We want to coach to the Tessas, to the Luisas, to the Rose.
Yeah.
And we want to coach, we want to make those great athletes better.
Yeah.
And then deliver, and they'll help us bring the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're coaching to kid number 14, right?
Yeah.
You don't coach to your weakest player. You help them and you encourage them to get better because, you know what? It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to succeed. Success is fun.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we're coming from. But we don't want any athlete hurt either. So
Yeah.
mechanically, we have to make sure the miles are there. So I'd say about 5 years ago, we incorporated Strava to our program.
Yeah.
And Coach Varicki, Andy Varicki, helped us hey, we track our athletes. Before it was just word of mouth.
Yeah.
First day of camp. Hey, how many miles do you have?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And that's tough.
Now it's, hey, you got to log these miles from your watch in Strava.
Yeah.
This year, this is the first year we've done it. This is our 12th camp coming up.
Okay.
And now we're saying if you do not have 150 miles logged through Strava, we'll have workouts for you in Royal Oak.
Wow. Okay.
Okay? So we
That's
know
crazy. That would have stunk for me. That would have stunk for me.
That's bad. Because a handful of kids, of one of your relatives included, would say, hey, we're Saturday morning, we're like, okay, how many miles you got for the summer? One kid said 4.
Oh, man.
One kid said 20.
Yeah.
We're doing 65 miles at camp.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yep.
And so if we do that many miles and you come into camp with 10,
Yeah.
you're getting hurt.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing we want. So now we're a little bit more dialed in to say, okay, here these kids are going to have at least 100.
Yeah.
They're C group. These kids that have 150 to 200, they're B group. Anybody, by the way, anyone over 200 should be our varsity runners.
Yeah.
They're A group.
Yeah.
And we're coaching to the A group.
Yeah.
And they're going to run 60 to 70 miles in 5 days.
Yeah.
And so with double sessions. So
Yeah.
with that, they have a great aerobic base. They've got good heart rate. They've got good lung capacity. And now we know we can do some things.
Yeah.
So we get back from camp. We have a week of double sessions.
Okay.
So we're trying to mimic camp for one more week.
Yeah.
And it's all slow stuff. We're
Yeah.
not really getting too fast yet. Some A players, some A varsity team athletes will probably get a little bit more speed.
Yeah.
But for the month of August, we're still building miles,
Uh-huh.
right? Because the body takes a little bit longer to absorb
Yeah,
that
process
miles,
it, yeah.
expand the lung capacity, and get more blood into the system,
Yeah.
right? So that allows that heart rate to be strong. And then I'd say about mid-September, we're focusing on speed.
Okay.
So from August, camp starts. This year starts August 9th.
August 9th.
And by, say, right after Labor Day, we're going to start getting the fast going.
Gotcha.
And pretty much by mid-September to the end of September, we're doing a lot of those 1K repeats.
Yeah.
We're doing some 800s on a track. We're doing some 400s on a track. Really, I correct myself, we'll save those 400s until October.
Okay.
Because at the same time, we're still doing longer miles.
Yeah.
So by the time October comes, we're switching from higher mileage to faster miles.
Yeah.
And it's really systematic. And we've got a good system. We got 8 years of these
Yeah.
these paper calendars,
Exactly.
and we always fall back and this is what we did this day 2 years
Yeah.
ago. We like that workout. Let's do it again.
Okay.
And but it then falls back to what has the athlete done?
Yeah.
Because if we get a lot of low summer mile. If we get a low summer mile team, then we've got to carry that endurance training longer into September than we like.
Yeah.
So guess what
Okay.
happens? Speed work gets pushed back into October, and
Yeah.
then
It gets tougher.
It gets
tougher to
tougher.
build. Yeah,
So it's what has the athlete brought to us,
for sure.
and our encouragement over the summer is, man, we need some miles.
Yeah. No, I love how you talked about like coaching the A players, because I don't really feel like a lot of coaches really understand like that's probably your best bet, coaching those players that really matter, because you're also giving them the responsibility to take the other players with them. And that's what I think we had a great system with that, like with our captains.
Yes.
We had 4 captains on the team, and they did a great job of taking the others with them. And that helped us build teams to be able to be state qualifying teams and be able to make long runs. So, I mean, talk to me about like the responsibilities that you give those captains and how they can help those, like shorter members of the teams that are like really valuable. You talked about the 5th person and how valuable that brings. So talk to me about the responsibilities for a captain.
Oh, we're texting, so it's different now because we get to text them, right?
Yeah.
And we keep it all group wise, and so we've got a group. Coach Luddy and I have a group text with our captains, and they then have the group text with all the guys and then all the girls, and so we're in communication with our captains all the time.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we've got some things to manage with dead weeks and off weeks and stuff over the summer.
Yeah.
But, cross country is a little different. We don't need a football field or a basketball court.
True.
Where you get locked out of during the, our summer is conditioning. You're allowed to condition.
Yeah.
You just can't do it in a group team setting a few weeks of a summer.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware of that. But outside of that, we're talking to our coaches all the time via text, like, hey, we don't see so-and-so on Strava. Give them a poke.
Yeah.
Let's go. Because I'm telling you, the expectation of these two teams, especially, we haven't talked much about our seniors, but our senior girls. But, man, we've got.
Trust me, I remember them as freshmen.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
We've got a really well-positioned leadership team with the girls.
Yep.
And expectations are high.
Yeah. For sure.
So we're in communication a lot.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of leads into my next question, like talking about both the boys and the girls teams. What are some of the ways, like, what are some of the differences in your teaching style for each of them? Because like we got boys cross country and we talked about it a lot, going through that. Talk to me about like some of the differences between boys and girls cross country just in general and in your teaching techniques.
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, neither Coach Luddy or I are yellers. Like we're not clipboard slamming, chair throwing yellers. But we have good, strong expectations, and we get disappointed and we express that. And so I think though, just naturally you can be a little rougher on the guys.
Okay.
Like we joke and we try not to curse, but every now and again
it sometimes
accidentally
slips out. It
will slip out.
It happens.
And then I look at the girls, and they're like, our senior girls are tough kids. They're athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great basketball players. They're great soccer players. And it just transitions into cross country.
Yeah.
And so I say that thinking, oh, you can be rougher with the boys, and we got to be soft and with the girls. But this set of girls, they're pretty tough.
Good.
I mean,
good.
I remember
like
you talked about the regional meet where you lost your shoe, and I love that. I love that Jake story. But that same meet, I remember walking our freshman girls up to the starting line, and remember that regional meet was pouring rain, puddles, lakes everywhere, and we were routinely getting beat by Everest, coached by Mary Williams, who's a good friend of ours, and we just wanted to beat them so bad.
Yeah.
And as I'm walking those freshmen, those freshman girls were wide-eyed. And like, oh man, are we really going to run in this?
Yeah.
And it's like, no lightning, no thunder, it's a go.
Yeah.
So I'm walking those freshman girls up, and I said to Rose and Annalise, I said, in a day like this, you decide to either be a beast or a little baby. and I said, you are going to fall in this race. And when you do not panic. Just get up, Do not try to make up that time quick.
Yep.
Just get back on your feet as soon as you can. Make sure you're not hurt, and clip it systematically.
Yeah.
And sure as anything, one of those athletes fell. I think it was Annalise fell, and she got up and kicked ass.
That's awesome.
And those girls told me at the end, they told Coach Luddy and I that at that starting line, they decided to be a beast. And so beast mode was born then.
Yep.
And
our team used to call it being a dog.
Being a dog.
Yeah,
that's
being
right.
a dog. That's
and
what it was.
I'm telling you, so in that regard, coaching the guys and the girls is not a lot different.
Yeah.
It really isn't. You know, sometimes I see athletes, and I don't know if it's all sports, but I see the kids that are excelling getting success shamed.
Yeah.
And that bothers me. That is a new phenomenon to me, that where somebody is putting in the extra miles or working extra hard on the last interval that we would do, right? Mile Mondays.
Yeah.
And then they would be like, "Oh, look at you, you know, doing up, blah, blah." And it's like so weird to me that somebody that wants to exceed and have success in a sport gets shamed a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do find that different.
Yeah.
And it's a dynamic that we gotta get over pretty quick.
For sure. I mean, it definitely is a weird dynamic, and you know, I think it's just an interesting way to kind of look at it. You know, I feel like I've talked to a lot of people about like this generation being different, you know, and like the mindset and like being able to find that mindset, because being a runner takes a different set of mindset. You know, I'll talk to people about being a runner, and they'll be like, "Jake, you're crazy." I'm like, I'm like, trust me, I know. But like that's a mindset hit, you know, where it's like, okay,
100%.
trust me, like I know, because you have to be crazy to run, you know, and it's a good crazy. Yeah, like that craziness, I think it allows you to put something into it, and when you see the constant improvement, then you're like, whoa, you know, this is cool.
So I'll measure running crazy this way.
Okay.
I remember back in the day when I would love to go running in pouring rain.
Yeah.
Like
I've been there
downpour.
too. I like it too.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I loved it is because I knew that the weaker runners weren't doing it.
Yeah.
The weaker mindset runners weren't doing it. So it gave me that, at least mental, maybe they were. We didn't have Strava in the 80s. So I didn't know if they were running or not. We didn't know until the first meeting we'd see their time. Oh yeah, they logged some miles.
Yep.
But now everybody sees Strava. So so that's how I'll measure it. Are you running in the pouring rain when no one's making you run?
Yep.
If you are, then you're a dog.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And you want that success.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I love that. That's exactly how I would run. I mean, I would run past Jonas Arone's house, past Joe Bontrager's house, seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, is Jonas shooting in the background? Oh, is Joe out running? Am I going to see him out running today? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's just motivation, I think, for all of us. And I feel like that's the right mindset. I feel like when you have that mindset where you're like, okay, I'm doing this, I want my team to succeed too.
Yeah.
You know, are they doing this? Let's push them. I feel like having that mindset is what's going to build like a great team.
You know, I got something from my dad, and you'll laugh at this. I've lost that little piece because now when I go running, if the temperature's under my age, I'm on the treadmill. I'm 57, so I don't get to run outside from November to April. So my dad used to say it this way: if the temperature is under my age, then I'm not golfing.
I like that. I think that's a good way to do it.
So as he aged, it had to be super warm for him to golf. But you know, so it's all like, what are you gonna do when no one's watching?
Yeah.
To be the best you can be at whatever sport it is. And our guys and our girls, man, the girls have a really unique year because we are so strong. Like Coach, we were just talking about this Monday. We're graduating so many this year.
Yeah.
So, on the girls' side.
Mm.
So we have a lot of seniors.
Yeah.
And on the guy side, it's Joseph and Quinn and, you know, a couple like senior boys, but we
Yeah.
have probably 6 or 7 senior girls. So we're going to feel that.
Yeah.
And so we're using that motivation to say, this is the year for you guys. Let's go out with a bang, man. That's represent at MIS, Shrine both teams, and we've got a lot of goals. And again, I like it when they tell me what the goals are.
Yeah.
I have my goals that I know that we can do, but I don't talk about those goals until the kids tell me what theirs are.
For sure. For sure. I love that. Another thing I noticed about being part of your program is how good at building team chemistry you are. I feel like with the camp starting out and with all of the extracurriculars we do like as a team, I feel like it's so good for building team camaraderie, it's so great. So talk to me about like how you and Coach Luddy built that system for that.
Yep. Well, I know Coach Luddy was all-state cross-country runner as well back in the day.
Yeah.
So she put it down. And I can't remember what her camp experience was back. I know my camp experience was phenomenal.
Okay.
Like Miramani took us to the Pinery. We went to people's cabins. And we just had such incredible experiences at camp that I knew that we had to get camp going again.
Yeah.
And so in 2009 we did, and like I said, minus COVID years, we've been going strong since. And this is like our 12th or 13th camp.
Okay.
And for a lot of reasons, we're using it a little differently now because we don't want injuries.
Yeah.
So we're really concerned about bringing athletes that don't have a lot of miles.
Okay.
Because it's. Again, are we going to coach to the A team or are we going to coach to that kid with 10 miles coming into camp?
Yeah.
Okay? So when you become a little more committed, you can go to camp.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them hurt.
Yeah.
And so, but camp, man, when you look at the miles, it's a lot of miles, but we're only running for 60 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Round up to 2 hours. The other 22 hours, well, I'm sleeping for 8 in there, but the other 16, 15 hours, we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we're boating. You guys are watching videos. You guys are at campfires, making s'mores. We're doing meals together. So that builds trust.
Yeah.
And, Abe, as the number 1 runner, has to trust 4, 5, and 6 that they're going to do their job. Tess as the number 1 runner, or Luisa as the number 1 runner, or whoever ends up being the number, like it's a crapshoot on who's going to be the number 1 runner on the girls' side. But they have to trust that those athletes, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 runners, are doing their job too.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to waste a first place finish. We don't want to waste a first through third finish with our 5th runner collapsing and adding points. So it's all and then they have to trust that Coach Luddy and I know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we have to trust that they're running the miles when we can't see them. So it's all about trust and then doing that trust building and that team building in a fun way.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I know is what I went through. Coach Luddy, same thing. We go through the same thing.
Yeah.
So I had so much fun at my camp, sometimes too much fun. But back in the day, Miramani, like our final run at camp in the Pinery was a 20-mile run.
Wow.
They would say, and we ran with Catholic Central, so at the Pinery in Canada, and they would say, here's Friday, the last day at camp. You're going from this town to this town. We'll pick you up in this town.
That's crazy.
Miramani would be in the van. I don't even remember drinking water for 20 miles. But again, it's snowing uphill both ways.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. But those were real. We would run to the city called Forest from Pinery.
Wow.
And I think Lou would pick up some of the C and B players along the way. But that varsity team on both Catholic Central, we're going the 20 miles. That was the longest I ever run in my life.
Yeah.
But now you're battle worn, and you're kind of commiserating with that team, and you're bringing that spirit of like you've been through a war together. Now let's go do it twice a week in our meets.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, me and Brennan Smith, I had Brennan Smith on before the NBA playoffs, and we talked about how we had just finished our Hell Week in Florida. What we did was we ran 50 miles in the week in Florida in the heat. And, I mean, like we did that, so then we're ready for the rest of the year. I took 2 weeks off after,
Yeah.
but then like I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm at a solid like 25 miles a week, you
Yeah.
know, like just like
That's
that.
perfect.
And if you start doing something that's hard at the beginning, it also builds camaraderie. Like Brennan and I have never been closer. We ran 11 miles on yesterday, like just
Is that right?
just together. Yep.
That's
So
fun.
I mean, like it's built our relationship and stuff like that, and that's the same way with camp. You know, camp is
Yep.
the most miles. How many miles you say it was?
Well, the A team's running 65 miles.
Exactly, and I ran 65 miles with the crew, and I think that's the most I've ever done. Still, you
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable what it could really bring us, and it got me closer with guys like Jonah, guys like Joe, guys like Arlen. You know, that team, and I
Right.
mean, that was kind of our best asset, that team chemistry. You know,
100%. And the more, the better in that regard. If we can get our top 2 guys connected with 4, 5, and 6, man, they're just moving together.
yeah,
And at camp, we do some fun things. It's not all miles. We used to do relays. We have picture run, and we vote on it.
Yeah.
And, man, we just, over the years, we've done all kinds of kind of cool, you know, running events, if you will, within camp. And,
Yeah.
and then during the season, we get away from it a little bit in the season, but, I mean, they're still together, and they're going through that battle together, you know?
Yeah.
It works.
For sure. So last question for you. This has been a fantastic interview, so thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming
for
on the
having me
show.
here.
But what are your expectations for yourself in regards to the next few seasons in coaching cross country?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Coach Luddy and I, we want to bring a state championship back to Shrine in cross country. The last one was, I think, 1973. There was 2. 73 and 74, they were state champions.
Okay.
We want to bring that back. I think we have the talent to do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter what I think, right? It's what the athletes are going to bring to us.
Yeah.
And I think from all observations in Strava that the top, say 5 to 8 athletes on both sides, both boys and girls, they're putting the miles in. I think camp's going to be a huge success. And, you know, I'm not going to put these goals out there. The kids got to tell them to me. But, I mean, we look to represent Shrine in a major way, regionals, Catholic leagues, and state meet. And so the expectation, I think, is good to start out with, like, hey, both teams have been to state meet for 4 years now.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop now. Next year, even though we're graduating all these girls, I want to do it again. We've got some really interesting freshmen coming. Tess' little sister, Nora's coming in. We've got, hopefully we get Joe Malcolm back on board here. She's a soccer nut.
Yeah.
And so those 2, Luisa's only a sophomore, I think. And so these girls, these young girls are going to be coming through too.
Yeah.
And so we want everyone's little brother and little sister being on our team. And the expectation is that we're going to keep carrying this forward. The expectation is success.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, Coach Arce, thank you so much for coming on the
thank
show.
you.
This has been a lot of fun. This has been so much fun getting cross country on the show. I mean, it's just a blast. I mean, it takes me back to that senior year, which I had so much fun with. So, I mean, I really appreciate you.
Yeah. I'll end on my comment with the camp story for you is we finally get you committed to cross country.
Yeah.
And you're coming to camp. and I always go up a day early.
Yep.
Because I go to Costco and I go to Restaurant Depot and I load up the truck with all the food, with all the crazy food for the week. And you're now coming to camp. And I'm pulling into the driveway in Veeder Road in Lewiston, Michigan, and I get a call from your dad. And he says, "Hey, Dave, you know, Jake's really excited about camp." And I'm like, "Oh, me too. I'm so excited. He's on the team." And he goes, "Yeah, I don't know if we told you, but he's got some food allergies.
Yeah.
And he can't eat X, Y, Z, A, B, C." And I'm looking in the mirror at everything that's behind me, and it's all the things you can't eat. I'm like, well, What did you eat at camp during that year?
I know Mr.
Bacon?
Plasky made me some crazy meals, like amazing
good.
meals. Mr. Plasky and Mr. Losi hooked me up.
Okay, you
like
survived.
it was awesome. Like I think I was eating better than everybody else at the camp. Like it was flat out awesome. I mean, that camp was so much fun. I remember you separated us in the groups by miles, and by miles I was in like Group B, and like with Jonah was like, just try to pace with us and see what happens. And I think the first one was like a 8 mile or something
Probably,
like
yeah.
that. I think it was an 8 mile. So I tried pacing with Jonah, and by the end of that run, me and Jonah were neck and neck at the front, like of the end,
okay,
of the end. And I was like, okay, this might be fun.
That was awesome, man. This was fun. This was fun to relive some of that stuff. And, and I just appreciate you having me, man.
For sure,
This was good, man.
This has been awesome. This has been awesome. All right, well, that's going to wrap up Jake's Takes for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll be back at you next time. Peace.